Hey everyone, this is James from TDB bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today I am going to be talking about a tea that is not a regular drink for me, a 2011 Yunnan Sourcing Mushucha Kunming-stored. And so I did do a write-up on the blog sometime last year about kind of Kunming-stored, so kind of finishing off a sample here and just revisiting some of my biases. I've never really been a big fan of Kunming storage, and honestly, my opinion didn't really change with them, but I think it's good to kind of like revisit some of your own biases and what you prefer, and just see if stuff shifts. Sometimes, especially in the learning process, you can go too fast, or you might be too dismissive of certain things. I think it's important to keep an open mind and have kind of good faith when approaching these. Not that my opinion necessarily changed here, but I did want to just see how some of these Yunnan Sourcing productions were doing, as well as let's see kind of the Kunming storage. And I also wanted to compare it with my own storage and see kind of how fast tea evolves compared to kind of the alternatives. As most people know that follow the blog, I tend to buy my tea from sources that are based at more humid and hot places, certainly than Seattle. So southern China, Taiwan, Malaysia, those are pretty common areas for me to get tea from. I also don't buy much young tea. So yeah, this 2011 one is also a northern tea. I basically asked Scott for some recommendations of what he liked, because I just wanted to make sure I get something that's that's Scott approved, rather than be like, oh, you sampled the wrong teas or whatever. So this one is the 2011 Mushucha. It's a higher end Linsong one that he did during that time. Linsong, also not a regular brew for myself. The challenging thing with this too is the styles of processing had changed quite a bit throughout the years. So if you try something from like 2002 that's been Kunming stored, odds are it's not quite the same thing as something from like a decade later, from like 2012 or whatever. So yeah, this is a tea. I think I tried a adjacent year to it at some point, the Mushu, and I think this is somewhat close to kind of the non-po productions that he also does. So it actually has, it's still very green, to be clear, but it has developed kind of this deeper, darker, you could feel it moving a little bit more towards that darker wood territory rather than completely dominated by kind of grassy florals, and definitely kind of a honey note coming off of that nose right there. So originally I kind of indexed the speed of storage at something like half of what we're talking about Guangdong or Taiwan in something like Seattle. And after drinking through all those shagwans and stuff, I'm now inclined to put it more at about a third. And I think the same holds true for Kunming, drinking through this. In fact, I think my storage might be a little bit faster than some of these. Again, it's a little bit challenging because there's so many different factors to this, but that's kind of where I land there. And so this tea is both younger and more dryly stored than stuff I'm going to be usually drinking. It smells nice though. Yeah, and if I was Denny, I'd hold this up to the camera, but the leaves are already turning quite green. So again, not unexpected. This is Kunming storage after all. Cheers. Thick. It's decently oily. It's a lot of florals. The florals and the grassiness are a little bit much for me, if I'm being honest. But it's not bad, per se. It just needs, for my taste, a lot more time. It hasn't thinned out, so that's something to note. And I want to feature a couple steeps here, so I'm going to dump this too and just keep it moving. Definitely a fair bit of stringency going on. You do get some honey sweetness to this. Using my standard 5 grams to 75 milliliter ratio here. And I'd say the tea is probably presenting a little bit strong right now. And this nose now smells a lot similar to my memories from about 10 years ago, trying a bunch of Yunnan Sourcing teas. Cheers. nutty. One reason why I went straight to these first couple steeps too is I feel like those can tell you a little bit more about the storage than a little bit later on. So this is starting to kind of revert back to my association with these northern teas. And as you might expect, these teas are transforming very slowly. So if you are someone that really likes that original taste, then I mean there's some merits certainly to be said for kind of dry storage, because you can definitely taste what this tea was like when it was young. Probably loses just a bit of that grassiness. It's got a little bit left, but it's not too grassy. It's kind of like this grassy tobacco pine thing going on with this as well. I think I'm going to stop it at just this third steep too. And yeah, some of the teas I tried were much older. So, for instance, I think Hai Long Hao made a Bulong mushroom from 2002. That one reminded me a lot of kind of the non-chow productions from the 2005s. The main difference is a lot of those non-chow ones we've had, like Malaysian stored or Southern Chinese stored. This was like straight Kunming for something like 23 years. So, for me at least, it tasted like 7 or 8 years old, which is one of the things that's kind of helping me to determine that modifier of like about a third of the speed. So I'd be curious where other people have landed. Certainly those that have stored tea for a while here. My storage is certainly slow. I think people can have a little bit of delusions on reality of how great their storage actually is. But I think in comparing my storage to others as well as Kunming, I think my tea has evolved a little bit more than this has. I mean, this is now 14 years old, and I think if I had this blind, I'd probably say it's just a few years old. The bones are not bad, though. Still quite astringent. Definitely a strong tea. And like if you have revisited some of those old blogs like Half Dipper, it's interesting to look back at what people were talking about in 2011. People were really into kind of like the new Western boutiques at that time, which I think in 2011 would have been kind of a handful that don't exist, but also predominantly Yunnan Sourcing, as well as Essence of Tea. Those two both started pressing, I think, 2008, 2009 range. So, I mean, these days, those two still are regularly putting out tea, but it doesn't quite get the same hype that it used to. So it's sort of interesting just to look back and read some of those old blogs like Half Dipper. I'm sure he reviewed this at the time. He was kind of a big fan of some of those northern productions that Scott did. The bitterness does convert, so that's nice. I'd say it is taking on a little bit of a darker tone. It has kind of like this dark wood honey. I'd say the astringency still dominates a bit over that sweetness there. So definitely not one that I would really terribly enjoy drinking right now. But you could tell that it is strong, and there are some, you could see why Scott would think this is one to age for a bit, certainly. Okay, so that wraps up this in-between. So check out that article on the site on Kunming storage and a couple of the teas I tried there. And I will see y'all next time. Cheers.